Good evening. This is the Town of Harwich Finance Committee meeting for January 19th, 2023. And I'll call the meeting to order. Please note that required by the open meeting law, I'm informing everyone that the town will be video and audio recording as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience, and by the way, there are no folks at this time in the audience, who intend to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chair prior to the start of the meeting. So with that, let's start with our first item, which is approve the minutes of December 8th, 2022. Hopefully everybody got a copy of those minutes.
Yep.
And I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay.
I will second.
Okay, moved and seconded to accept the minutes. Just note that Dan Twerk made the motion and Bob McCready seconded that motion. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's a vote. I guess I should do a roll call vote, let's just to be clear.
Aye.
Dan,
Aye.
Mark, Michelle, Karen.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, next item, we have review feedback on the draft FY24 budget summary tracker. We had asked Karen to come up with, in preparation of our budget activity coming up very soon, to prepare a spreadsheet so that we can basically keep score as we go through the budget process. You're going to find there are dozens of budgets from different departments you're going to be looking at. We need to keep track of, number one, did we review that particular budget? Do we have comments? Were there, adjustments, blah, 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 and how do we ultimately vote on that particular budget? So Karen, with that, maybe you just run us through, share a copy with everybody. And,
Yeah, so Peter gave me a lot of these. Peter gave me sort of a structure that he wanted, so we put this together with clearly department FY22 information so that we can kind of compare back how we did end of year turn back, FY23 information, and then obviously the FY24 budget proposal and what that looks like from a percentage increase or decrease. And then, this is literally just to try and start to keep track of what's going on and have us be able to just stay a little bit organized. And if there's any kind of fields or things that people think we're missing or should add or that would be useful, it's easily done.
I think it covers it pretty well.
Yeah, I think once we start to populate it,
Yeah.
and I think the next thing is to start loading departments, so we'll end up with multiple sheets here. And then I think for those departments, getting the historical stuff, the 22 budget stuff in there, and 23 budget, actuals, whatever. As we go through that will be helpful. It's always, in any budgeting process, whether it's municipal or anything else, if someone had a budget of 100 last year and they only spent 80, well, why do you need 110 this year? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, and I think this will help us put that in front of us. So, there'll probably be some budgets that just kind of routinely, go on as they go on because they budget pretty closely and spend their, their money and they need whatever for next year. And then we may find the odd one that, this thing that we budgeted for didn't really happen. Maybe it got delayed a year. Sometimes that happens, like I'm just making up, like, okay, I was going to go buy some software, put a new computer system in, but it got delayed by 2 years because of something. So now it's showing up, out here kind of thing. So,
What, have you used this before? We didn't use it, well, I've only done this one other time. We didn't use one of these last year. So I was just curious what level of detail, or if you had an example of something.
I don't have an example, but history tells me that that's the information you want to try and capture.
Yeah,
if you had a different way of doing it last year, I'm open to that.
I don't think we had it summarized. Do you recall, Mark or Dan?
I don't think we had a formal form like this.
No, we didn't.
Yeah.
I think, no.
And the intent is every budget from every department or committee or whatever, no matter how large or small, deserves our consideration, deserves our attention. So you can get lost because the numbers get very big, when you look at the total. you can get very lost and say, oh, I don't want to focus on this one because that's what the action might be. Well, it could be that down here there's something else, or, who knows, right?
Yeah, we had gotten, what we did get last year, which was terrific, was the budget book.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was,
Really
Yeah.
helpful.
that was really great,
Yeah.
and
So-
everything in it.
So what I share with you is, it's my understanding that next Monday at the Board of Selectmen meeting, the FY '24 budget will be presented.
Oh, cool.
So we should check the agenda, and if possible, it would be good for any or all of us to be there, just to hear the message. If you're not there, watch it on TV, at your convenience or whatever. But it's always good to get the sense of what the presentation is and, what the, I won't say mood, but what the, kind of what the enthusiasm is, whatever you want to say, read the body language, whatever.
What's the date on that?
Monday, the 23rd.
Thank you.
I think, are they meeting at 6 o'clock, the selectmen these days?
I think so.
Yes.
I've lost
Six,
track, so.
Yeah, they're meeting at 6.
Yeah, so check the agenda though and just make sure, but I would appreciate it if, however many can show up. It is the start, that kicks it off,
Yeah,
because when you really can't do anything until you have a budget, right, or budgets, and that will kick it off for us,
So that would be the 2024 budget proposal.
yes.
So that number will go in that column.
yeah.
Yep.
That's very helpful, because I had sent you a note to see if we can get an update on the annual town meeting calendar from Joe with some dates, because I have a few, when we reviewed it a while ago now, when he first put it out, we had put some general, January, end of February kind of
Right,
points
if I
for
remember
certain
correctly,
items.
quite frankly, I really wasn't expecting the budget till like
Yeah,
early February or
That
something.
February 13th is
Yeah,
what I
something like
thought
that.
was
I
coming
think
to
that's a
us.
requirement.
Yeah,
But I think it's fortunate they're gonna get the information.
yeah, that's awesome.
2 weeks ahead of time, so. Not that that means you can slow down or,
Yeah, it's,
whatever, but, it'll give us a little bit more time to deal with everything.
Yeah, that
know.
works, cool.
Is that budget proposal figure, can that increase or decrease?
Can it change?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
okay.
and your own.
absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Things happen along the way. I don't have a good example in my head. But let's just pretend that all of a sudden during the budget process, something happened, positive or negative in the town, and we had to go, let's say we had to hire a new
three
employee.
retirements.
We had to hire a new employee out of necessity, and it was gonna cost us another $120,000, say.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that wasn't put in the budget, wasn't planned in the budget, but along the way, if it has to be put in,
Yeah.
just like during the budget process, as we go through people's budgets, there is an opportunity, if you see something that doesn't quite click, and we think, we really can't support that, but if you could just find a way to knock this down, or why did you put that in there? You can ask whatever questions you want.
Sure.
And sometimes the response is, oh yeah, they went back and they looked at their budget and, oh yeah, you were, that's a good idea, we can do this. It's a give and take. It's a bit of a painful process because you have all of us, you have the selectmen, most budget people are coming before us on that Saturday that we have in March. And it's pretty intense, But to get organized about it, I think will help us as we try and focus our attention on what we want to try and accomplish,
And who presents the budget? Is it each department?
Well, what'll happen is, on Monday, the budget has been prepared by the town administrator and his team.
Yeah,
So I'm assuming he will present the budget.
okay.
So it'll be his budget, there'll be budget books, maybe not at that meeting, but subsequently given to us. And then what happens, Michelle, is we have this Saturday date reserved. Somebody remind me of the date, it's like the 5th or the
March
9th or
4th.
something.
March,
And that's an all-day session from basically 9 to 5.
Yep.
And we've found in the past that if you give each cost center, basically, department, like the fire department, the police, whatever, and give them their opportunity and you try and schedule, so, okay, this budget is big, so we have half an hour or 20 minutes or whatever. And you try and have them hit the highlights.
Yeah.
And most of the time, they're gonna tell you things, like the fire department's gonna say, okay, we had the same staffing level, blah, 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 we had this many more. Overtime is typically a topic or an issue with the fire department because they make so many ambulance runs and, people get stuck at the hospital, they have to call somebody in. I mean, there's a lot of overtime associated with it. And it's always a discussion factor. It's, legitimate and whatnot, but that's just part of what happens. So we go through all those things. In that meeting in March will be a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. We sit like we did, for the last joint meeting we had on the capital plan. At that's, or right angle type table arrangement. The morning session is usually chaired by the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and the Finance Committee chair chairs the second half, the afternoon session. You'll be exhausted at the end of it, but you will have learned a lot.
Yeah,
Because number one, you
we
get
didn't
to
do
see
it
people you don't even know, you get to interact with people, let's say, that are running, the rec program or, the water department or, whatever. And now you start to build a relationship and you understand, well, I know that guy, I know that person, and particularly if you're a liaison with one of these, presenters at that time, if you haven't before, that's your opportunity to make sure you're connecting with them and whatnot and, to move forward on the budget discussions.
Thank you.
So it's an opportunity. And then there'll be some that can't make it that day or for some reason need to present at a special meeting. And so as we meet, and by the way, we'll end up meeting, once we get to February, probably a couple times a month as opposed to once out of necessity. And sometimes as we get into March, April, closer to the deadline for things to get ready for town meeting, we may meet a couple times in 1 week, just to get through some things. Okay?
So is that the date on that is March what?
4th, it's a Saturday.
Okay, just make sure I have it.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
The only thing that I could think of, I've seen it done in some agencies, and for the most part, they follow this kind of a format. And that is giving an FTE count by department. The actual FTEs for that budget year, the one proposed in the current budget, and just see.
I saw that.
So the classic case or question you ask, maybe some really small department, like the cemetery department or something, but you would certainly ask the police chief and the fire chief, or any new staff in your proposal. And then there's a discussion to be had, because if I remember right from last year, new staff was added just within the budget, right? If new staff is being contemplated, is that something that goes out for a vote, or is it something we just try and do within the operating budget? Historically, way back when, it was always practiced to at least take it to town meeting for a vote as a separate article.
Yeah.
Yeah, and oftentimes take it out for an override article because you're increasing the tax base to pay for it, basically. I can tell that wasn't done last year, and so one of the questions, and the only thing I've heard one position so far, but I don't know if that's the extent of it. We'll have to find out as we go through the process and what it all means. So we'll figure it out. Yeah. Okay, and if any time during the process you feel like you're not getting an answer to something, please let me know. It's okay. If we're having a dialogue with the department head and Michelle, you don't think you get an answer, it's okay to say, Mr. Chair, I don't think we're getting the answer to this. I mean, it's okay. And then maybe I can redirect it somehow or something. I don't know. Maybe they don't know the answer. And that's okay too to say, I don't know.
Okay.
It's all just a bunch of human beings trying to get, something done for the town and so on. Okay? All right? All right, next topic is,
Just a question, does whoever created this, can we get it electronically?
Of course,
The form?
easy. That's done, considered done. I'll do one.
okay, but you can get electronically, but what I'm gonna ask Karen to do after each one of our sessions where we do something with the form, let's say we were here tonight and we reviewed 3 budgets, I would ask her to update wherever we can on this sheet.
Yeah.
And then distribute it to everybody.
Of course.
Okay, so then we don't really need it.
I don't think so, unless you
No,
try.
I thought we were just going to keep them.
No, this is
Oh,
meant to
no,
be
I'll do it. I'll keep track of it for us all, so that
Oh,
it's a
great.
tool that we
This
can
is,
all
this
use.
is, the idea of this is to be a FinCom tracking tool,
Right.
right? And so I think it's just easier, I mean, if we were all taking notes, and then we compared it, we'd say, wait a minute, where'd you get that note from?
Yeah, that'd be
You know,
tough.
that kind of thing, so. There's no Dane out there, is there?
No, not there.
So
No.
just so you know, I had updated the agenda, so there's a couple of things on here, if in fact you wanna, if we wanna go there. Like I put a standing item for these.
Can I borrow this?
Yeah, of course, you can have it. And then there's
Okay.
a couple things
All
on the
right,
back.
okay, all right, so just while I'm on my kind of list
Yep.
here, Karen, so why don't you, do you have anything on the timeline to annual town meeting to share with us?
Yeah, so I have a spreadsheet that I created that was actually helpful prior to now, because there were some things leading up to this point that we had to get done. And Joe didn't capture everything, so there's certain things that we need to do from an annual town meeting readiness standpoint that I'll keep track on here, things that are very specific, milestone-based type stuff. But March 4th is the absolute, a huge date for us, so we all need to make sure we have that. If you back into that, the stuff that should happen prior to that, again, Peter had mentioned like the budget, final review of the capital outlay budget, and the budget should be presented. Warrant articles should be submitted in the February timeframe.
Is that Dane out there? Can you hear us? Dana, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
I don't think he's talking.
Can't hear you. Bear with us, Dana DaCosta is trying to call in remotely. Dana, I'm gonna call your cell phone. You can put it on speaker. Technology, don't you love it?
Hello?
Hey, bon dia, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I was trying to get, I couldn't hear anything either. It said, and I couldn't see anything. I saw you for just 1 second, the whole table lined up, and that was it.
Okay,
You
so,
wanna just have me on speakerphone there?
yeah, we can do that, and,
Alright.
we'll just take it from there, okay?
Alright,
So I'm just gonna leave you here in the table. I'll just point out to the recording that Dana DaCosta is on cell phone calling in to us, and we have him on speakerphone. So if you hear his voice and recognize his voice, he's in Florida, but he is participating in the meeting. So Dana, you had the agenda. We've already gone through the minutes. We've gone through the draft budget tracker, which Karen has developed and will start to populate for us. Karen was talking about the timeline to the annual town meeting. I did point out that I was informed later today that the municipal budget will be presented on Monday at the selectmen's meeting.
okay,
Okay?
Which, yeah, and that all ties together, that makes sense, because I had put like a February placeholder for getting a copy of, or the warrant articles would start to be drafted and shared with us in the February timeframe. That's why I don't have an exact date, so Joe might have something with an exact date. And then the budget, I guess formally was supposed to come to us on the 13th. It looks like we're gonna get it sooner. But everything leading up to the 4th, and then obviously, I mean, that's a huge part of the work we do, right? Getting to the 4th.
Yeah.
So that's really the key over the next month, 6
Okay, so
weeks.
if you could update that and circulate it to the team.
Yeah, well,
That
yep.
would be good, okay? The next thing I want to talk about is, we have set the capital plan public hearing for March 9th. That'll be in this room. And we'll have a public hearing. We also need to do one on the 2024 operating budget, and my recommendation or suggestion is we do that the same night. So March 9th as well. Does anybody have an objection to that?
How does that work? Like, what would that meeting look like?
That meeting looks like us sitting here at a normal meeting place. Anyone from the public or, on the screen who wants to, once the chair calls the public meeting to order, and there'll be some dialogue I read calling the meeting to order. And then we'll open it up to anyone who wants to ask questions or whatever. Typically, we will invite the town administrator and the capital outlay chairman to be here. And it's the public's chance, not necessarily us, because we've seen the
been
capital
through it,
plan. We will be going through the capital plan. And the same with the budget. We will, at that time, we'll probably have a summary budget. And if people have questions or concerns and they want to come here and, give us some suggestions or say something, they're welcome to do it. But it is a charter requirement that we hold those 2 public hearings. They are, on one hand, a matter of formality. They need to be done. Periodically, you get some good information out of it, and you get a chance to interact and dialogue with some folks. So
Okay.
what we'll probably do for that meeting is have another microphone where people could, if they have a question or want to stand up and say something, they could do that.
Okay, cool.
Okay? So
How or where does the public get access to the budget?
where?
Yeah.
It should go on the website at some point in time. It's not our job to do that. That's the town administrator and his team to do that, so.
Okay.
But that is a good question in preparation for this. How can you come prepared with questions if I don't see? If I
Yeah,
have,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And by the way, go ahead, Dana.
Did you say they were presenting the budget Monday night?
Yes.
Okay, so it'll be in the packet, and I'm sure right after that, they have to make it public.
Right. Yeah.
Hi, Mark.
And I'm sure they'll stick it on the website. Hey, Mark.
Sorry, I'm late.
Mark, for the record, Mark Amarez is joining us. So, get the name? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. We know who we are.
You can make some.
No, that's all right. We know who we are. Okay, so is everybody okay with having both public meetings on March 9th, which would be the capital plan and the 2024 operating budget?
Yes.
Okay, everybody's saying yes.
Yes.
Dana, as the clerk, would you take care of communicating with the town administrator to get the posting for those? They have to advertise in the Chronicle and whatnot?
Yep.
Okay. So, you got an important week in your life, and that is March 4th, the all-day session, and then March 9th is part of our regular meeting. We will have these 2 public hearings. Okay? I'm just making a note.
I'll add that.
And that's really early. I mean, in the past, we've done these things in April, so that's really good news.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we'll see where it takes us. I mean, right?
Yep.
And we're getting a couple-week jump on it by, having the budget this Monday.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. So I'm feeling good about it. Okay, so I'm just writing down Dana to post advertise. So, okay. All right, Dana, you got the ball on that one, okay?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so the next thing on here that Karen just gave me, let's see, FinCom Committee Liaison Updates. Do you have an update, Karen?
Yeah, so I don't have any updates for my particular groups, because they're one's out of session golf and the other one is, they're just moving along. The rec and youth and rec group, they're moving along just fine. I was hoping that we'd hear from Mark, and then on the charter updates, maybe, Dan, if you could give us an update on that. There's a couple that are really kind of there's active stuff going on that I thought it would be great to hear.
Okay, you mean Mark on the school budget?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd just be a little bit cautious. Martha, what you sent me is very preliminary,
Yeah,
right? So I'd be
yep.
very careful in quoting numbers, I wouldn't do that. I just tell us about the process. Give them an opportunity to actually publicly come out with something, because if you tell us here something, it's now out in TV land, and, it's not a
Yeah,
public thing yet, so I just want to caution you on that.
Okay. Do you want me to give me a little, I'll give a little synopsis?
Yeah.
They've presented a preliminary budget last Thursday.
This is the
School.
Monomoy School.
Monomoy Regional School
Okay.
District presented a preliminary budget. They're having all the department heads tonight to come and justify those budget items, and I'm hoping to get over there, so they're well on their way to.
Yeah, I thought it was a great start, yeah.
They're well on their way to zeroing in, and it is very tentative. One thing they did raise is that the COVID or the federal ESSR funds are gonna run out this year, so that is a concern for following years. A lot of that has to do with mental health services, so that was a concern.
I think does also have to do with, they were during COVID providing, I think, free lunches for the kids in school, or maybe only elementary school, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, they
but,
did, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Charles Briscoe brought that up to me, is that there are funded positions that deal with emotional and mental health that are not gonna be funded shortly.
Yeah.
So that, therefore, that's why a lot of the budget items are still tentative.
okay, all right. And the other one was charter review?
Yeah, the charter review, I'm curious about, because I know they're actively meeting, or at least.
Yeah, I couldn't, the Charter Review Committee and the Board of Selectmen met this past Tuesday, and I couldn't attend, I had a conflict, and I'm not sure if Angelo did, but I've got to go review the recording of the meeting to see just exactly what, we were supposed to talk about potential changes to the charter, so,
Oh, that was Tuesday? I might want to look at that
it
too.
was Tuesday.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else have any liaison reports they want to
I have a
share?
question though. I'm curious about water, wastewater being such a huge part of the budget.
Yeah,
I know several times it's come up about, will there be public forums to try to sort of explain where we're at, where we're going, and all of that stuff. And I don't know, do you cover that?
yeah.
I don't know if in your, if you've had any conversation with Dan about, is any of that gonna come together? Because that seems to be something that in the town, people were interested in hearing more about, like, where is it? Like, I guess they did that last year or the year before, whenever they started the project. And it was really helpful to people to say, this is the roadmap, this is the phase,
Yeah.
5 phases, we're in this
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
these come next,
It's
all that
it's a
stuff.
very active topic. I can tell you, the meeting I was at just before this one, somebody at the meeting told me they were at, is there a Cape Wide Men's Club or something like that, or Cape Cod Men's Club, and Dan Pelletier presented today, and the topic was all about wastewater. There's been a lot of yak lately about DEP and talking about requirements if you don't have a watershed permit in your town, or watershed permits in your town. That every septic system may have to add this nitrogen filter, and the numbers are, all over the place. And the effectiveness, quite frankly, apparently is all over the place. So those kinds of things are being discussed, and they need to be discussed. And quite frankly, when we get into the debt schedule, I was saying at this other meeting, and these are only numbers that I hear people throwing out now. But if you look at Harwich spending $300 million over 20 years, simple math would say that's $15 million a year. Well, that's 20% of what we already spend between the school and the town. I mean, it's huge numbers. And, and then if you take roughly 6,000 households and divide it into 300 million, we're all gonna pay 50 grand, whether we're using a system or not. I mean, they're big numbers.
Yeah, and I think people want to know, like, when should I anticipate? I mean, I'm no different. I'm like, I don't think we're on till like later, but I would love to see a map that says there's 5 phases, and this is generally neighborhoods we think are going to be hit then, and this one's not going to be for 8 years out. And then, like, people can think and plan.
Yeah, and well, in the original, what did they call the original plan? The watershed management plan or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
That came out.
The
as a
CWM.
CWMP.
Huh?
The comprehensive waste management,
Yeah,
water waste management plan, yeah.
whatever that,
CWMP.
you know, it's like that
Yeah, I
big,
think he's
right?
got it, yeah.
All kinds of maps and whatnot, and it
Right.
showed, obviously, the phase one, the focus on East Harwich, and
Right.
phase two, I think, was the expansion of East Harwich, whatever, and then it started moving around. I think things have changed and been modified. I mean, I
Sure,
know
yeah.
we changed
Yeah.
engineers, and, you know, we may be removing the West Harwich section before we do something else, you know,
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
thing. A lot depends on what goes on with discussions with Dennis on, you know,
Yeah.
building a mutual, you know, a joint plant or whatever. So, I mean, all those things are very active, very active, so. There'll be more to come on that, I mean.
Oh,
it's
there's
just,
no
you know,
doubt, yeah, and
Yeah,
I
you will
I
get to
think,
hear.
I've just heard several people ask for that kind of, at least some kind of update.
Okay, so I think I have your sheet in the front. Debt schedule analysis. Dana, you
Oh,
still
can I
there?
just comment on the liaison? So I'm supposed to, I reached out to my liaison, I think real estate and open space. So I reached out to the chairperson and I'm supposed to attend in person tomorrow morning, just to introduce myself.
Okay, great.
Cool, good.
Good. All right, so Dana, you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, so you and Michelle took on the task of debt schedule analysis, if I understand it. I know you're like on the honeymoon or something now. I think it's called vacation. But assuming you're gonna come out of that at some point, Michelle took the initiative to put something together. I don't know if you've seen it, but we're all gonna see it for the first time. And at least Michelle's gonna explain what she's done and where we are. And maybe, you know, sometime next week or so, you two can get latched up together and sort it out based on the comments we might provide this evening.
That works fine.
Okay, so here's Michelle.
So I'm just these are not to be really distributed, I'm not there yet, but I'm gonna explain to you what I've done thus far. And then I'm missing a denominator, one of the numbers that you had asked me to include, which is how much is it gonna affect the taxpayer. But I'll just show you at least what I did. So Dana provided me, and Dana, you can tell me the source of the debt.
Do you give her a debt schedule, Dana?
Yeah.
So I don't know the source of that. Where you got
Was that from the
from.
finance director?
Finance, yeah, probably.
Yes.
Yeah, so based on that, I took a look at what the outlay was gonna be over the next 5 years. And obviously, the numbers are very large, right? Because the first year, 2024, was, I think it was about $68 million. So what I did was I modeled out what the existing principal is. You can all take a look at this, but I'll take it back because it's not ready for final printing. Yeah. Just to give you an idea what I've done so far. Here you go, Peter. I'm sorry, I don't know if I have enough.
That's all right, don't worry.
Yeah, no, you
Don't worry,
guys
don't
can
worry.
share.
Yeah,
We'll
that's
share,
all
yeah,
right.
we'll share.
So basically, what you see up front, up the top, is what we had from our existing debt schedule, both principal and interest. So if you were to go and look at that debt schedule that was passed out to all of us, you would. The first year is 2024. I've indicated that. I show the principal and interest that we're currently paying for the next 10 years. And then what I did is I took the new debt that we would spend based on the capital outlay that Dana gave me, and you'll see that new principal and new interest, and that gives you the total. And then what I also did was,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
That's for the FY '24 capital plan?
yeah,
So you guys took the $5 million or whatever?
so we had
And
it's basically, it's okay, it's a 75 million less what we would have as the free cash. So
So it's any borrowing.
it's what we would be getting, what we would have to issue notes for, so 68.7.
68. Oh, God. Oh, that's all the wastewater stuff, right?
Yeah, so that's all the wastewater stuff. I'm looking for the document that Dana gave me.
Hey, Michelle, how many families did you consider in this? I mean, I can do the division.
Yeah,
but-
so I used what was on the original debt schedule that we got. Somebody had put in families of 3,500. I just used that same number because I didn't have an updated
Okay, I don't know
number.
if that's the right number or not, but
Yeah, so that's why I was saying that this is only
Families in Harwich.
preliminary. Well, what's weird is that
tax-paying units, I think, is what you want, right? Or,
yeah, that was on the debt schedule that was given out to us, so I kept the same methodology.
yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
And so if you look at the old per family, that's what is our existing debt today. And then with the new issues over the
Yep.
next 5 years,
Yep.
that's what the new would be. And the delta is the 588.
And so you can make some nice curves and show the delta, right?
Well, I've done that. I just wanted to get it kind of
Yeah, it's
finalized,
methodology.
but basically it's going to be something looking like this. Outstanding debt, our annual interest expense existing, so just so you can see. What our per capita is existing, and then what I did was I put existing plus the new. And as you can see, it's a hefty amount of money, a lot
Well,
of
so the
money.
whole idea way back when was as you retire debt, you bring new debt on to keep kind of a level debt number.
Correct,
Right.
but based
So with the
on,
big bump going on with wastewater, I mean, it just,
Well, it's gonna
it
come
distorts
down.
everything.
it's basically 2024 and 2025
Right.
that, I'm looking for Dana, do you have the numbers in front of you that you shared with me?
Danny, you there?
Oh, I have it right here.
Yeah, I'm here. I don't have them right.
I have it.
now.
Sorry.
She found 'em.
Sorry, folks.
Yeah.
So it's you'll see, 2024 is 68.7, 2025, 14.5, 2026, 1.5 million, then 6.3 in 2027, and 11.2. So that's 5 years.
Okay, so my only caution,
Yeah.
in the first year you have how much, 68?
68.7
For the
now.
water, is that for water?
That's for,
Yeah.
water, yes, that's all water.
Okay, so one of the questions when we get the water superintendent with us, are they gonna spend that all in 1 year? In other words, they can get the authorization to borrow that much money, but they may not borrow it, they may borrow it over like a 5-year period. Cause there's only so much you can do at any one time, right? I mean, you can't,
That's an excellent, so those were questions that I had for modeling,
Yeah, yeah.
which is
Right. And we
where,
didn't have those answers when we started putting this together.
well, we still don't, but I mean,
yeah, so if you look at this new interest, if you look at this is all based on this layout, right?
Right.
These 5 years, but if you can spread that out, that's going to definitely change the curve at the
Yeah.
beginning.
yeah.
So,
Which is the goal, right, is to try and level it out some so that it becomes more manageable?
Well,
Is
ideally,
that-
it would be, yeah, but I mean, there's gonna be a practical reality of building these
Sure,
systems,
yeah,
putting pipes in the ground. There's only so much you can spend in 1 year, just because you can't get every
Right.
contractor in the world to show up in Harwich and say, I'm digging holes, I mean, it just doesn't work that
Yeah.
way.
yeah, so, and then we're in a, rising interest rate environment, so how does that impact,
Right.
when you're gonna issue the notes? So I really need the details.
So what
Around
I will
notes.
do, once we finish our discussion here about the debt schedule, okay? You make whatever tweaks come from this table and Dana, or after you get together with Dana, let me know, and I will get us in front of the water superintendent. You and I can go sit with him, and maybe, one or two of the water commissioners, or however they wanna do it, and better understand the flow of cash, let's just call it that.
That's right, because right now, like I said, I'm going with this, which is the $68.7 million in fiscal year 2024, which is, those numbers are huge compared to what
Right.
we had before.
But it also, hopefully, when you get done with this analysis and it spaces out properly, it will show, I think, that when we're doing all this wastewater, a lot of other things can't happen or shouldn't happen if you're trying to keep a debt fairly level. Okay, because we're gonna be dominated by wastewater. I mean, it's just a
It's
fact,
true,
right?
yes, yes.
So some things we thought we were gonna do in year 6 or 7 may have to get, pushed off the table because we can't afford to do it.
And these issues, again, the issue dates, 30-year notes, You know, that was all assumptions that were provided to me. So, I mean, I can model it pretty much any way we want.
Understand.
Providing, so it's all been set up now.
You
That's
have the
great.
tool put together.
Yeah.
Now it's time to,
We
get
tweak it.
in there and
Yeah.
dig into the details.
Exactly. And one detail I definitely need to know is this 3,500 families, because I got a little confused because I took out of the book, you know, in the front of the book, it says 11,000.
Full-time residents, right?
Well, it took the total tax collected, divided it by this 11,000 number, and came out with like 3,300 per household, I guess. So I didn't
Or
know.
per residence is
Yeah,
probably what it is.
should that be the number?
Residence gets taxed. Right?
Yeah.
Some of them are
So,
businesses, but there aren't that many businesses. It's mainly residents.
yeah, so I didn't know if I should be using the 11,000 number. The 3,500 seemed low, but it was on the sheet
And-
before.
We have non-resident taxpayers too.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
That's
So
families.
it's a great question for the town clerk,
Yeah, that's a,
for the town clerk.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
can ask that question.
and tell exactly what you're trying to do. And what you need is the denominator, which is, how many tax units, or the assessors, the assessing department.
Yeah, so whoever did this debt schedule before had 3,500. They were looking at it in terms of 3,500 families. So I just used the same thing for lack of having another number.
Yeah.
Okay.
But our job hopefully is to make the data as relevant as we can.
Yeah, and then we
Yeah.
can cut it any way we want, and
Exactly.
we can analyze it
But
any way
it's
we
gonna be a
want.
very useful tool in explaining to
Yeah, it's
people
pretty
what the
interesting.
impact.
good stuff.
This is the spreadsheet that I put together with the debt, the new issues.
Yep.
And I can also share that with everybody. I look at,
What did you assume for a rate? Did you,
on this one, I just put 3%, but it's so that you can input it in and we'll
Yeah,
just
yeah,
change it.
yeah.
Yeah,
You
so
built it
I
up.
just put 3%.
yeah.
But as you can see, I assumed that the principal would be paid down over all those years. So if we do it differently than that, I also need to know that.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
okay.
The other thing that comes to mind is that even, like you say, it's gonna take them so many years to spend this money. They're planning to authorize it in May. And as we go through into the future years, we'll have to remember that so much is already on the books now with the 68 million, that when you go to authorize 20 more, now you're up to 80-something million if you haven't spent it all.
Right.
And like you say, pretty soon it leaves a spot where there's no room for anything.
Right, but prudent management would say you only authorize it within a year when you need it, but,
Yeah. Otherwise, what do you do with it?
But some of that, as we get into the potential, if there is any, for grants and that type of thing, it may be that you're gonna be required to authorize the whole thing, so that the
Right.
granting agency will be assured you're actually gonna do the whole thing. I mean, there's some of that that's gonna happen, and it'll change dramatically, trust me. But at least we'll have the tool, the model in place,
Yeah,
and Michelle can make, changes on the fly, if you will. And we'll have a good document that we can explain to people what the impact is. Okay?
Yeah, I'm starting with the water superintendent is the key.
Yeah, so what I suggest is, Dana, you and Michelle get together in the next week somehow, some way, like on Zoom or something. And Michelle, once you're ready and you get your stuff,
then I
ready to
can
go,
share it with everybody.
I'll
And
be glad to
Yeah.
get in touch with the water superintendent. I'm the liaison, so happy to
Oh,
do that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so then we'll go from there.
yeah, if I could just take those back, because I just don't want, they're all drafts.
Yeah, we don't want
and-
misinformation.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't mind, I have to excuse myself for the evening.
Oh, yeah, okay, I forgot, Michelle.
So
has a-
Dana, you and I will talk.
Yep, we will. I'll call you.
Okay, thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Feel
Michelle.
better.
Do you have
Thank you.
do you have a cell phone if he doesn't call you?
I have his phone number.
Okay. Yeah, do you have his secret phone
I
number?
don't have his secret phone number.
The real phone number?
Do you have his wife's phone number?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Thank you,
All
everybody.
right, Michelle, thank you.
Okay.
Have a good
Thanks.
night, Michelle.
Okay,
Good night, Michelle.
all right.
Help those kids with their homework.
I know.
All right, next on this list, I'm doing two different agendas here, so, all right, so I have one thing I want to bring up, and that is, Karen and I, several weeks ago now, met with the finance director, And if you
Oh,
recall,
wow.
again, several weeks ago, that we had a list that we talked about of documents that the finance committee needs to, get our work done and whatnot, like the debt schedule, like what makes up the $8 million something number at the top of the free cash document, the vehicle schedule. We agreed to a list, and we had provided that to her in the meeting. With your permission, I'm going to invite her to come to our next meeting to give us a status on where she is and/or give me all the documents, and then I won't necessarily need her to be here unless she wants to be here to explain the documents. So you guys okay with that?
Sure.
Yep.
Okay, all right, so I'm just gonna make a note here. You all right with that, Dana?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I'm just writing something. Okay,
Peter,
yep,
getting back to the debt schedule.
yep.
And given the fact that the debt's going to blow up over the next several years because of wastewater, has there been any consideration, discussion of considering, declaring, I should say, a moratorium on other capital expenditures except for emergencies?
So look at it this way, we have a capital plan that's been presented to us, right? There's no moratorium in that capital plan that I know of. I think at some point, everybody has to look at it and say, can we afford to do this? I mean, as we get closer to the numbers and things get sorted out as to whether we really have to crunch this down to 20 years or whatever we're doing, then I think it's gonna become imperative that we manage our debt, which means there are some things might get delayed, right? They're gonna have to. I mean,
Well,
it's-
it would be a very symbolic gesture if the town came out and said,
Understand,
moratorium
and
on
we-
any
and-
new capital,
And we could get to that in our discussions and,
Yeah.
as we go forward. But
Just
this
a thought.
tool will allow us to, at least to the best of our ability, explain to ourselves what the debt means and then hopefully explain it to other people.
yeah.
Okay?
I guess that's if you consider all the potential funding sources, right? From a debt schedule standpoint, in terms of taking out loans and different things. And this is me thinking, what are we gonna hear back from, say, the TA or the Board of Selectmen? It's not as straightforward as that, I don't think, because not everything has to go and we don't have to go borrow money
Right.
for every project. We have free cash and we have other ways of funding things.
Yeah.
So I think,
But likewise with the debt schedule, there will be some assumptions on wastewater. I mean, you can run different scenarios. Now we have the model. I'm making this up. The federal government is gonna give us 30% to do this next phase or something. All right, so we're not borrowing that 30%, but we have to borrow the 70%. Or the state decides they're gonna give us 15%. It's like doing a school building project on one hand, and that if the opportunity presents itself and you can get someone else to pay for it, or at least part of it, usually that's a good thing unless there are the requirements that go with it that don't become too onerous or whatever. So that will evolve. I mean, it's gonna evolve. The one thing that will impact everything going forward is what comes out of people's pockets. And, I think the first shock they got was the recent tax bill, just the assessment. The assessment number, we all heard, okay, the tax rate went down, but the assessment went up. So what happened with your tax bill, I think most people saw an increase. And it will only get worse, so. Okay? Let's make sure I cover everything here.
the only
Okay,
I just had a placeholder for 204, if we wanted to talk about that at all.
sure, I don't mind talking about it.
Like, I don't have much, Mark, so you might have a quick update. Do you have anything on that?
Well,
Well,
I'll share it with
If
the-
you wanted to talk about it.
Let me just jump in here, and we don't even need to talk about it if we don't want to, and it's just,
Yep.
I think that, on one hand, I applaud, you going out and contacting or maybe ran into folks that they're in that business of looking at assessments and whatnot. I think the problem becomes, we sitting here don't have really any authority to do that, you know what I mean? So it's not like it's coming from the Board of Selectmen or the town hall or something. As an individual, that's all, and I understand what you're doing, trying to help the situation by getting some feedback that says, hey, for this much money, we can get, there are firms out there that will do this or that. On that building, I've come to the conclusion for this round of going through it, the Board of Selectmen are locked into their approach. I think their approach is they have free cash. They're just gonna fund these things from free cash, whether they bundle all of them into one article and try and push it, you know, through that way, or whether they break them out and voters get a chance to say, I really don't want to spend my free cash on that, but I don't mind doing this thing. I think the danger in having a lot of free cash is that not great decisions financially might be made at some point in time, because it's not like, oh no, I gotta show up in front of the taxpayers and I gotta go borrow money or something. But the reality of it is that free cash is our money, and by our, I don't mean the finance committee, I mean the taxpayers, right? It's our money. It's not the selectmen, it's not the town administrators, it's not the finance committee, it's the taxpayers' money. So they should have a say in how that happens, so. I just leave it, I mean, I just let it go with that. So. Anybody else on that topic?
It's good for me.
Okay, yep,
Going back a topic, I just found some statistics that said there were 5,200 households in Harwich, 3,300 are families, and about 2,000 are non-family households. So we really have to look at that denominator.
what does non-family mean?
Yes, what is a non?
Single people?
So if you're a single person, you don't have a family? I mean, how do
Maybe.
if you have a cat, are you a family?
We gotta dig through the numbers, but
It needs to be, I think,
3,500
I think
seems
it ends
low.
up being the total of those two. Because when you're looking at it is what's a tax-paying unit, I guess,
Right.
the way, you know, real estate tax-paying unit. That's the way I would look at it. Right, yeah.
And that's a property tax.
Yeah, I think so,
Calculation.
I think so, yeah. But we'll get the right number and, you know, we'll go forward with that, okay? By the way, I have a question. I know you had asked me about MMA in an email,
yeah, I was gonna go up Friday night, but I don't have a ride.
okay, and you said you were going. Is it this weekend?
It's tonight.
Oh, okay,
No, it opens tomorrow morning.
Yeah,
okay. I lost track of what week. It's usually All-Star Hockey Weekend or something. Is that this weekend? Usually, okay. Is anybody else going, just for curiosity?
when you headed up?
Tomorrow morning.
Okay. Are you headed up? No.
No, I'm not, I've been about 8 times and you'll hear the guys, it's interesting. Have you guys ever been there before?
I've been.
Okay, yeah, I mean, you get to hear, you know, typically the governor speaks, there's a lot of other officials speak, and you get to, you know, meet with a lot of other people dealing with the same kind of problems. I mean, one thing I would make sure I do is, you know, find out all you can about other towns struggling with wastewater. I mean, that's you know, and how they're dealing with it, and there's probably gonna be some workshops. I don't know, I haven't looked at the agenda, but,
I figured it was safe to go since Dana's out of state.
Dana, you going to MMA?
Yeah, but it's not that same MMA.
Oh, okay, just checking, just checking.
Taekwondo.
Oh, it is a great thing to go to, and I've been recommending it every year since I've been there. And it's like you say, there are going to be workshops on wastewater and sewering and the latest techniques and technology and all those things.
Yeah, and they have
It's worth going to hear those. And usually, if you get a couple people up there from Harwich, you split up so that you can bring back material from 2 or 3 different workshops each time you go to one.
And the other thing is a trade show that goes with it, so there could be somebody selling a widget that solves all the problems in the world, I don't know. You know, that kind of thing.
For those playing along at home, it's the Massachusetts Municipal Association, I think, and it's all the towns in Massachusetts getting together to share notes once a year.
356, isn't it, 356? That's the number, Dana, 356?
Towns in
351,
Massachusetts?
you're almost there.
351, I'm sorry, I'm losing it, yeah, 351, you know,
They
cities
call it
and
the
towns.
guy.
6 of them have the town meeting form of government.
There you go. All right, okay, is there anything else to be discussed this evening?
No.
Okay, our next meeting
Just
is,
one quick question.
Yep.
The March 4th meeting, can you do that remotely?
can you do it remotely?
Mhm.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's gotta be a way to do it remotely.
It's gonna be in the Griffin one, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
It's gotta be a remote way.
yeah. You gotta be somewhere else then?
Yeah,
I'll be home for it now.
You'll be what?
I was gonna be away, but now I'll be home.
Okay, good. Well, we'll have extra room at the table, but you won't be there.
Might be on YouTube, channel 18.
Yeah. It's a big event. I mean, it's, it's an
yeah,
important
I
event.
unfortunately, I hate to miss it.
Yeah, that'd be good.
But I would like to be able to do it remotely, to actually
Yep.
pose some questions.
Okay, good. Good. And make sure, I mean, it could be 6 or 8 or 10 people remotely, and it's sometimes hard to get recognized for a question, but we gotta make sure we pay attention to that.
Yeah.
So, it's good.
Should I move to adjourn?
Not yet, because I wanna announce the next meeting is February 19th.
February 9th.
Now,
Okay.
the 19th is a Sunday?
Yeah, it is.
Well, and they followed this up. Well, here we go. What's
I
the
think it's
third?
February 9th.
Huh?
it's February 9th
February
is-
9th, I'm sorry.
It's the
Yeah.
second Thursday.
February 9th, there we go. I have to yell at the minutes, people. So, all right, no problem. All right, February 9th, 6 PM. Hopefully Angela will be better.
I hope he's okay.
Angela fell down a week or so ago. So, yeah. So, okay, with that, now motion to
I
adjourn.
move to adjourn.
Second.
Non-debatable. We'll go around anyhow. Aye.
Aye, all in favor?
All right, unanimous
Aye,
vote. We are
aye,
adjourned.
aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, Dana.
Bye, Dana.
You know.